Today, we are with not just a phenomenal, as the Christian world would say, man of God. We are here with a phenomenal man. He is known, well known, throughout New Bern, and his character speaks for itself. Proverbs 2:6 says, "For the Lord gives wisdom. Out of his mouth comes knowledge and understanding." Now this man is one who takes that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and he measures his own decisions according to it. He is the senior pastor of Dayspring Ministries and also the co-founder of Dayspring Ministries, to include the overseer of United Christian Alliance International. I want to introduce you to and welcome Bishop P.O. Rodgers.
Thank you.
Today, Bishop, I'm going to ask you questions about how your ministry got started and a question or two in the ministry.
Okay.
You served in the military, and following the military, you became a member of the New Bern Police Department. You stayed there and you retired. And you retired actually as the first African American deputy chief. So considering that background, how did you get involved in ministry, and what was one of your biggest challenges when you first got started?
Well, to begin with, thank you for that introduction. That's priceless. But police work, military service, all of it's public service, which is, I guess, to say that I never had a real job. But I guess in the military, I got the fever, I guess, of the bug of doing something a little extraordinary. So when I was in the Army, I really liked the kind of things that they did with drill and ceremony. So I became a part of the Honor Guard, and we did the parades and the welcomes for the dignitaries and that kind of thing. And I just kind of enjoyed it. After military, I needed a job, so I came to New Bern and got the first thing that was hiring, which at that time happened to be the police department. Police department was basically a different kind of animal at that particular time. Police department in 1968, where I started, was segregated. We worked just the black neighborhoods. We weren't allowed to police white people. As a matter of fact, we were isolated into an area what was back in that day was called Area 18, which was all black. If anybody wants to know how racism gets involved in policing, you can figure it out by finding out the fact that most black people account for about 80% of the calls. So the interaction between police and our black community is something that's really, really a high percentage. And if you happen to be black, if you happen to be black and you're policing black people, you begin to think that maybe that's the way things are. But what I found is that once we were allowed to expand into other neighborhoods, that basically everything was the same. White neighborhoods had the same issues. The only difference between the black community and the white community is that we tend to live ours out in the street. They live theirs out in the house.
Okay.
So when the cameras turn on, you're not allowed to go into people's houses. But we're in the street.
Yes.
So everybody gets to see what we do. Interesting story. In 1969, the New Bern Police Department was was actually integrated for the first time, and that was a process where the Weyerhaeuser Corporation was building a housing development, which is now known as Colony Estates. The powers that be decided that they did not want that kind of development. It was an upper middle class development at that time. They didn't want that kind of development in a, quote, segregated community. They wanted housing that was equal for everybody. So they went to the city fathers and asked the question as to why the police department was not integrated. And their response from the governing board was, that's not going to happen. They then decided that perhaps if you want the place integrated, maybe you need to hire a lawyer and do something about it. So there were 3 black police officers at that time. It was myself, Murphy Wyndham, and James McConnell. So we engaged attorney Reginald Frazier to file a lawsuit on behalf of the 3 black officers. And as a result, of course, when and I guess that's the behind the scenes conferences began, the city decided to capitulate and allow the blacks to police the community along with the white officers.
Okay.
The interesting thing is that the first, I guess, year or so, we found that working the rest of the city was a lot easier.
Really?
A lot easier than working just our community. Over a period of time, we found that the police department became the poster child, if you will, for not just civil rights, but for equal rights. By the time 1982, 83 rolled around, the police department was about 50% black. It was just about equal.
Oh, really?
And there were 2 black captains, I think 4 sergeants that were black. Great number of leadership.
Yes.
So things had started to change.
Okay.
And as a result, again, you see the problems between the races started to come down as the number of blacks who were policing increased.
Okay.
So, and it didn't have anything to do specifically with just policing black people, but policing in general, because of the fact that I think our training was such that we knew how to get along with people.
Okay.
Which is a little different than what we see in some cities today.
Yes.
But let's leave that alone and we'll move on to something else.
But actually, that kind of piques my interest, your comment, because I, as we know, especially in 2020, and I'm sure it's been happening before, so many deaths of the African Americans by the police officers, usually the white ones, and that friction. So how would you say the training that you had compared to the training today? What is it that could possibly be missing today?
Well, there's a number of things that are taking place today that was not an issue for us. For example, we didn't have warrior training, and I don't want to get into what that is, but you can research it and find out what that's all about. And we were connected to our community, which is a different situation. If you don't know the people that you're policing, then the tendency is to treat them a little differently. In my particular situation, I knew everybody in my city.
Oh.
If I didn't know you, I knew your parents. I knew the family. I knew where you came from. I often tease my wife sometimes. We look at a name, I say, well, he ain't from around here, because, we know the families and we know white or black. Doesn't make any difference, because at that time, New Bern was about 25,000 people. So it was easy if you police the same area over and over again.
Yes,
you get to know the people. So you can call somebody and have them come in rather than go out and pick them up.
Okay.
And there were some people like, and I sure hate to call folks' name, but we have a mother in the church
Okay.
who was basically in charge of half the city, you know.
Oh.
So, but she was instrumental in making sure that we kept everything in line. If I needed to address a problem, I could tell her.
Wow.
She would handle it. And if there was something she needed to handle, she could call me.
Now that's a relationship.
Yeah, and that helped us, which is why we didn't have the kind of racial issues here in New Bern that we've had in some other cities. And I think the aggressiveness of the police have a lot to do. If there's always a possibility of picking up a guy the next day, we would do that.
Wow.
And sometimes you don't have to get into a one-on-one confrontation. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. I am going to. Okay, so as far as the police force and ministry itself, how did you get started with heading a church?
Well, we see so many problems without solutions.
No.
And when you see a lot of problems that don't have a tangible solution, how do you fix this? How do you do that? You figure out, I guess, over a period of time that maybe the answer is not in laws and restrictions. Maybe it's in church. Maybe there's a possibility that you can resolve some of these issues by maybe changing people rather than changing the laws. So we started, right where we were, with dealing with folks on the job.
Okay.
And sometimes, drug dealers were some of the worst, because these are very smart people.
Oh.
And they're very strategic in what they do. And yet, I didn't meet any that were happy.
That's understandable.
So, well, you would think that with your money and your fame that you'd be happy.
Okay.
Yeah, but when you talk to them, one-on-one, you find that there's something missing that's not there. And fortunately for me, once I got saved, I knew what was missing.
Okay.
And I could tell people, not just drug dealers or that kind of thing, but people in general that had problems, that had issues that they needed some help with.
Okay.
People have. I used to watch people go to certain spots every day. They would go and sit at these spots all day long with another group of men. They just all sit around and they drank beer or maybe, I don't know, smoked a little pot, whatever they were doing. But they were so diligent. They would walk to wherever they were coming from to that spot and sit there all day. 5 o'clock is like, you punch the clock and they leave and go home. And I thought, this is strange.
Yes.
So I started talking to some of them, well, why do you do this? My thought was, if you are that diligent about showing up on time, spending the day doing something, and then leaving at a certain time, you might be able to do the same thing in a job, in a real job. Yes. So you start ministering them where they are, and pretty soon you find that there is a need that's not being met. So Bishop Thomas, my pastor at that time, suggested that perhaps we needed to do something in New Bern with the ministry we had in Greenville, and that maybe we could help more people by having something that would be able to, give these people a place to do some things, So we came up with the idea of Dayspring Ministries, and the idea was to bring light or to bring enlightenment to people who were having struggles with life, issues of life. Okay. So we started the training with I think there was a book, and I can't remember the name of the author now, but the book was called Training for Reigning.
Okay.
And you can see it in our mission statement, Training for Reigning. And the idea was that we could train people to come above or to rise above their circumstances. Mm-hmm. They could be better in life. They could own property. They could have jobs. They could accumulate wealth. They could get an education. You can reign in life. Mm-hmm. And that's what we started. So everything was geared for that. And there was a training or a teaching ministry, not a preaching. I can't preach. I'll tell you today, I can't preach, but I can teach. I know I know how to reach people.
Yes, sir.
So that was the thrust of what we were doing.
Okay. The training for reigning, that part. How do you change a person's mentality to see past where they are?
Think about what we're saying. If you're diligent, if you can do something meticulously, day in and day out, mm-hmm. you have skills.
Yes.
It may be misdirected. So you need to direct those skills into something that's productive. We teach people that instead of renting somebody else's house, you need your own house.
I agree. Yes.
You need your own car. You need your own money, and if your enterprise is illegal, you don't want anybody looking over your shoulder. You want something that's going to be productive and that's going to give you peace of mind at night, so you could lay down and sleep and not worry about the man per se. Plus, most of our members came with what we call issues.
Yes, sir.
Either underemployed or unemployed, or the skill set was not good, mm-hmm. or the education was lacking. So we started teaching people where you can find resources to get all these things taken care of. Okay. We had people who worked in the employment office. We had people who worked in manufacturing companies. We had people who worked in school system. We had people working in all stratas of government. So we would channel people to the needs of our people and match them up so that people could get what they needed to reign.
Yes, sir.
As a result, of course, today our ministry has, quote, full employment.
Wow.
In other words, anybody who wants a job can get a job. I know, sounds like another politician.
But that is so.
But we also have people who were renters who are now homeowners, people who never, ever, ever owned a brand new car or driving them. And it's their doing because all we did is provided the mechanisms for them to get it done.
Yes, sir. So therefore, that goes really back to Scripture, and that everything that you need is right there in the house.
That's right. And see, that's the whole impetus of salvation, is that once you turn your life over to Christ, then He makes you what you're supposed to be. See, you were somebody else before.
Yes, sir.
He makes you what you're supposed to be. And sometimes that takes more education, takes more hard work, yes, takes
sir.
Whatever resources available to make you what you're supposed to be.
Yes. My next question for you is, many people struggle with trying to balance work and family. Usually one of them suffer. How did you, or how are you able to balance both work, family, and then also the ministry?
Well, it is and isn't a balancing act. The reason I say that is because if Christ is the center of what you do, mm-hmm. then everything that you do centers around Christ. So I recall that when our son was a small child, we used to have a van. We had to travel back and forth to Greenville for service, especially during the week. He would do the homework in the back of the van at the table, that kind of thing. you just make sure that you're taking care of all the things that you need to take care of. And check this out. We're together.
Yes, that is true.
We had an hour's drive over, an hour's drive back, and we were in church for an hour or two. So we were still together as a family. Our weekends were pretty much like everybody else's. We did whatever folks did, and we took vacation. The only difference is that our vacations were from Monday to Saturday.
Okay.
And we were always back in church on Sunday.
Okay.
So there was really no balancing. Christ was in the, my thought has always been the same. If I'm the saved person, then everything I do involves my salvation.
Yes.
So there's no separating the two out because I'm the saved person.
Right.
So whatever my activities are, they're based on my salvation.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't see it that way. But
Well, I don't think we should try to reinvent the wheel. I don't say, well, I must do this or I'm going to go to hell or I need to do that. I think that it's a blending of who I am with what I believe. If I put the two things together, they always work together for whatever reason. And that's, I think that's why we were able to stay together as a family, and that's why we were able to do the family business. I guess that's the best way to.
Okay. Just based upon what you said, it wasn't really one of my questions, but how can you help families now that are kind of struggling, the parents kind of struggling with their children? You had that relationship with your son and your wife, but now it seems to be a disconnect with families now, and parents not really knowing which way to go.
Because there's a tendency to believe that there are certain things that make our children happy. Mm-hmm. That if we do this or we buy them this or do whatever, it makes them happy. The truth of the matter is that children are more settled and more comfortable when there's peace.
Yes, sir.
When folks feel like, if the cupboard's not full, but everybody's laughing and happy, doesn't matter what's in the cupboard. Sure. And I think the fact that we're not giving children that peace of mind, that comfort, that we're always going to be here, that whatever you need, we're going to make sure that mm-hmm. we supply that. And I don't know that we're doing that today. I think that we are so preoccupied with having to have it all now, and that's a problem. You can't have the new house, the new car, the new wardrobe, all at the same time, and you're making a certain amount of money, and you're trying to raise children because you got to prepare for their future, college funds, the whole 9 yards. So rather than trying to do it all at one time, I think you need to make sure that you have a decent place to live.
Okay.
That you have a safety net in place, mm-hmm. both physically and financially, and that the family is intact in terms of being able to communicate with one another, so we know what's going on all the time.
That makes sense. My next question, Bishop, has to do with, I want to go to the logo that I know we're kind of
which one?
This one, I want to go to the church's logo, the sun and haloed by the rainbow breaking through the clouds. What's the significance of that?
Well, it's that light. The original rainbow, the original logo, not really rainbow. The original logo has to do with the sun breaking through mm-hmm. the cloud. And what we did is we changed the art, if you will, of the colors.
Okay.
When we see the rainbow, it is the sun's colors being filtered through the moisture. Right. We understand that. Well, what our logo signifies, it is the array of hope and life that comes when you break through. And that's what we see. The lights shooting in different directions is symbolic of how God sends us in all these different directions with all these talents and gifts.
Yes.
And now it's been modified several times till we get to where we are now with the current logo. But the symbolism is the same, and it means the same thing. It is bringing light to those who sit in darkness. In other words, it is enlightenment of just the knowledge of who Christ is.
Yes, sir.
It is the knowledge of who you are, and then the knowledge of who you are in Christ.
That's good. I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
This one has to do going back to 2020. That was a year that definitely will go down in history. We had COVID-19, which has taken hundreds of thousands of lives just here in the United States. The cases are over 20 million. We had a presidency that was lacking, we'll say, and others were following that lack in wise decision making. And we saw, even though systemic racism always has been, it seems as if last year it raised its head to a degree that even the young people had to take notice. So what words of encouragement could you give to us that gives us hope that things are going to be better or getting better?
Well, 2020 was exactly what we said it was going to be. A year of clarity of vision. That you would see things as they really are. And what we saw this year, everything that you mentioned, has to do with people coming to a realization that God was about to turn things around. Things were going to change. Now, with anything else, if you get an illness of some kind, you get the symptoms first, and it lets you know something's wrong.
Yes, sir.
And then you have to go run the course of the disease, whatever it is. And sometimes that's very unpleasant.
Yes, sir.
But then there comes the healing part, when you know it's going to be all right.
Right.
Now, what we saw in 2020, we saw the prophecy that things were going to be out of whack. Everything that you mentioned was there. Racism was not new. COVID, even though it was a pandemic that we'd never seen before, we knew something was going to affect our life as we knew it. We knew all of this was in play. And when it happened, we knew that obviously it had to run its course, and then we would be okay on the other side. Now, I thank God that no one from our ministry passed during 2020.
It is a blessing.
Yeah, so no COVID deaths, and I just believe that was God's divine providence. But here's what we see. On the other side of that, 2021, so now we say one is beginning again. It's starting all over again.
Okay.
So what do we learn? Don't do what we did last year. Don't make those same mistakes. So this year we say, let's just simplify life.
Yes.
If we manage to have church and not have a in-house congregation, maybe we can modify that. If we can have church outdoors and we don't have to dress up, maybe we can change that. If we don't have to come to church with our money in our hands and we can do it electronically, maybe we can do something different. We don't have to have a choir to sing.
Right.
If we can just get a small group to sing a few, motivational songs, this works. So we simplify things, learning the mistakes of the past, so we don't have to do this again. So now we say, okay, what is it we really need? Let's do those things. And the things we don't need, we're not going to do that. So, if you've noticed this year, we've seen a lot of that change. We're not doing what we have done in the past. We've figured out that we can do some things without having to involve a lot of people. We've learned how to do communion. We've been able to have ordinations.
That's true.
We know how to do Zoom now, something, and a prayer summit, virtual,
Yes, sir.
So let's figure out what other things we can do simply without doing a whole lot of other extraneous things.
Okay.
And I think that people are less stressed, more involved,
Right.
and the church is more evolved. So
That's true. Okay. So that goes back to with the simplified message that you've given us of love God, love His people, love His word, and it's like that's just one big circle.
yeah, and the fact is, if we can remember just 3 things,
Yes. Simple.
we'll be better off, because now we don't have to remember the whole Bible
That's true.
like most people are trying to do, because they have scripture for you and me and everybody else.
That's really good, because it goes back to you're saying that when your decision making or with really wasn't a balance. You said with the job, it was simply with God first. God was first, and then as we within the ministry, if I'm understanding it, is because of the love for God and following Him, then it makes it easier to love and minister to the people,
Right.
and the need, which is where that simplifying comes
What to
in.
love others is treat them like God treated you,
Yes. Makes sense.
like He treated you.
Like.
Yeah.
Okay, and my last question to you, Bishop, is given all that you have done and the things that you aspire to do, what is the legacy that you would like to leave, or how would you like to be remembered? What is the thing you would like to be best remembered for?
If I were to be able to sum it up, I think that I would want people to know that I really cared about folks. I enjoy people. I love people. I enjoy laughing with them. Crying not so much, but I like family. I like the family atmosphere. If I were, as I mentioned today, a fly on the wall,
Yes.
I would want to hear people say, in their quiet time, in the privacy of their own home, I really had fun at church today. Mm-hmm. It was a good experience. I think that's what I'd want people to remember, that we had fun. We just had fun.
Yes. We do laugh a lot in
Yes,
church, don't we?
yes.
Well, I do believe that definitely is something that will be said, and even now is said in reference to you.
Right.
But I want to thank you. Before we leave, though, are there any additional words you would like to share
No,
with us?
I'm about dried out now. I need to, folks say I need a drink.
Well, Bishop, I want to thank you so much for taking this time. And I hope those of you out there enjoyed this, and I hope you received something from it. Thank you.